Hello and welcome to Deep Drive, half review, half podcast series where I talk about pieces of media or whatnot that I interacted with recently and share my thoughts, opinions, whatnot. Today we're talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. I have a bit of a toothache, so if my speech is a little bleh, that's why. But with that said, I actually am going to address this for once. Spoiler warning! I haven't introduced the previous episodes of this because I've been covering stuff that's so old, but considering we're covering a movie that released last week, I will be talking about spoilers, so if that is a problem, click away. What was the story? So the story of Deadpool Wolverine is Deadpool's life, it sucks, and he wishes it was better. He wishes it was a lot better. And so he tries to make it better via the MCU, but he gets rejected. And then he gets into depression, and he breaks up with his girlfriend, and then he gets the decision, or the opportunity to actually join the MCU, but at the cost of literally everything. And he doesn't like that, so he decides to stop it. It's a Deadpool movie. It's a standard, low-stakes, very Deadpool, character-driven affair. That said, this one definitely feels a lot more... It feels a lot more different than the previous Deadpool movies, which are pretty much Wade doing stuff because it's what he wants, or what he thinks he should do. Whereas this one is Deadpool doing the right thing because it's what he wants. But through that, trying to fix his world stuff, that's when he finds a universe-displaced Logan and brings him along for the ride, and then you have Deadpool and Wolverine. It's in the title. So when it comes to this, I was very 50-50 on what this was going to be. I didn't know if it was going to be a Deadpool movie, it was going to be an MCU movie, more Fox, more Marvel, what were we going to get here? It's definitely a bit of both, which is definitely to its credit. There's a lot of people that were expecting a more of MCU. I definitely heard there were some people that wanted Deadpool kills the Fox universe, which this is not that. This is definitely not that. It actually pays a lot of respect to the Fox movies, which is someone that just went through them all recently. I very much enjoyed that as a factor, actually. I think it was probably where I found the most hard in this movie, is that it genuinely cares about those Marvel properties that aren't the MCU, and wants to make sure that they're remembered. To get to the movie more now in terms of bit by bit, to start, what an intro. Phenomenal. It's the reason it's going pretty viral on social media. The dance sequence, the music choice, brilliant. It's phenomenal. It should be extremely mortem. The fact that it's, hey, let's fight with Logan's corpse as a weapon. But it's so Deadpool absurd that it really just works, in all honesty. The Logan montage is adorable. Some of the cameos there and references are so good. For me, the brown suit was the standout easy. Oh, this costume was so good. I need that brown suit in a future Fox live-action property of some variety. Especially if we do a full-on new Wolverine at some point. The easiest way to separate it from this Logan, with Hugh Jackman as the character, would easily be just to give him the brown suit costume. When it comes to our two leads as well, like, Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool is still just Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool. Like, it's not any different in this one. He plays it all the same. He has both in positives and in negatives. I think there's certain jokes that he does that land better than others, but there's definitely some jokes that he does that are the standard Deadpool affair. That humor is subjective. I've seen a lot of people talk about how they don't find this movie funny, or they might find this movie more fun than the other ones, but I think that's ultimately just up to you as a person and what you like as your sense of humor. Logan, on the other hand, is something we can grade a lot more, actually, considering we have experience previously with Hugh Jackman in the character, as well as just the fact that we're bringing him back for this role, or he wants to come back for this role. And in all honesty, it could have been horrible. It could have been Michael Keaton as Batman in the Flash levels of just, why are you here? It is not. Hugh Jackman is brilliant in this movie. He completely nails the emotional beats that is needed. The fact that he's playing a Logan that both seemingly is and isn't our Logan. So his whole tragic backstory in the movie is about how he let all the X-Men down and they all died and he wasn't there to save them, so he wears the suit as repentance, which, by the way, is a brilliant way to incorporate the suit into the movie. We don't see that per se, and I wish we did, because I think it would allow it to be a lot more emotionally impactful if we could see how he let them down. But we do see some flashbacks when Cassandra goes into his mind, and it's clearly the Fox X-Men movie, so we know he at least went through some of what that Logan did. It's almost at the point where it's potential this could be a Logan that is after Days of Future Past of some variety, where after the time was changed was both different and not different at the same time, but who cares? Main part of it is, was it worth bringing Hugh Jackman back? And the answer is probably yes, actually. The action of this movie, it's pretty similar to the rest of the Deadpool movies. It's definitely better than most of the MCU stuff. The fight scenes are... There's particularly 2 fight scenes in this movie that are very good. The opening one with the Logan corpse, and as well as the last one, when Logan finally puts the cowl on. It's Deadpool and Logan versus all the other Deadpools. One take, though very CGI'd. Brilliant shots, though. Brilliant choreography. The CGI is worth bringing that in now, too. A lot of people don't like it. I don't care and don't notice it. I know there's a lot of people complaining about, particularly the way I think Hugh looks with the mask on, and how the mask is CGI'd, but, like, Deadpool's mask is CGI'd. And at the same time, we already know the horror stories behind how underpaid, overworked the VFX artists are. So, in all honesty, whatever they can put on there that makes them fed and can feed their families, I don't care. We should talk about the elephant in the room now, which, of course, considering it's a spoiler review, is the supporting cast. And mainly the return of Chris Evans, Jennifer Garner, Wesley Snipes, and the return/intro of Channing Tatum, Gambit. Of those, all 4 are phenomenal. Evans, you can tell, is having so much fun with the character here in this one. When it comes to Snipes and Gardner, they're both welcome additions. They really nail... When it comes to Snipes and Garner, they both nail their characters, both very enjoyable parts of the movie. I missed this. Apparently, Snipes has the "I scared uphill" line. I completely didn't hear it. I was that enthralled, and it must have been, honestly, the main standout for me, which is, of course, Channing Tatum's Gambit. When it comes to Channing Tatum's Gambit, I've been waiting so long to see him play this character. I remember when he was announced in cast, I was like, oh yeah, I can see it. I'd love that. And Gambit is one of my favorite X-Men. And man, he nails it. He nails it so much. The costume, the accent, the fighting powers, brilliant. I will also give credit to this movie as well. They kind of do this with the latter 3, not really so much Chris Evans. But in these Deadpool movies, we definitely have a problem where it comes to any character that's not named Deadpool. They're very much a side character, and they're usually either going to get some really bad joke that makes fun of them, or they're going to get killed off, and you're not going to get to really enjoy them at all. We don't get that with any of the remaining 3. We kind of get it Chris Evans, but it's also kind of fair with Chris Evans, because of those characters, he's probably the one that is least important for this. But for the other 3, they get paid very well respected. They get really good fight scenes. They even kind of get hinted at we might see them again, or they at least get a happy ending in the end. So credit to that. Of course, though, it is worth talking about when we're talking about all those supporting casts is, of course, Laura, the return of Daphne Keane. She slots back into this perfectly. She can still act like crazy. The cute references, like how she still has the glasses from Logan. She still has the same fighting style and nails it. Just, she's really good in this. And the fact that while we don't really, but some people probably disagree, we don't really piss on the ending of Logan in terms of Logan's character. This is a different Logan. He has a different backstory, different worldview. He's not the same. We do get to continue, however, Laura's story from Logan, and it honestly kind of gives her a happy ending, because she does get to live with a version of her father at the end of the movie. And in all honesty, if that is the last remaining sort of character from the Foxverse that is not a fourth wall breaker like Deadpool, credit to that. In all honesty, if we're going to do a different Wolverine in the Foxverse, I would love to just see Daphne Keane inherit the role. I think she'd be brilliant, and give her the full costume, it would be brilliant. It'd be phenomenal. One thing as well with Channing Tatum's Gambit that I think is worth mentioning is he has a running gag about the accent. It gets a good laugh, especially when Wade makes a jab at his dialect coach. And I think if it wasn't the fact we had X-Men 97, that might have grated on a lot of people. But I think one thing that's worth remembering, and I want to really, really hammer home that I felt in the theater, is this Gambit combined with 97 Gambit balances out perfectly as 2 separate iterations of the character that I think we really needed and really deserved after such a long break for no real good X-Men character representation aside from a very fair few. It's also worth mentioning the soundtrack of this movie as well. The licensed music is brilliant, as I already mentioned, the opening scene, and the usage of Madonna in the third act as well is brilliant. But I will also pay credit to the the OST, like the background score, it's surprisingly effective. I think there's definitely some reused tracks from I Heard Logan in this movie that play at a good time. And it definitely, I think, elevates certain scenes of the movie. Should also talk about some other characters I think that come to my head now. Cassandra Nova is brilliant. I definitely think she's a little weird here, and to put a lot of my thoughts better, I think watch Cosmonauts video. He nails a lot of what I thought about the movie, but I definitely think that doing a Cassandra story without Charles is a bit odd, because her whole motivations and characters are very firmly ingrained in her relationship with him, which this movie does kind of try and do. But it doesn't have any long-lasting effects or payoffs, so it's just kind of whatever. I also really enjoyed, I think it's Matthew McFadden as Paradox. He's just funny. Like, scene-chewing funny. Would I care to see him again? Probably not. But he fits his role in this movie very well, especially as a villain to Wade for the first act of the movie. That I couldn't help but smile with some of the jokes he makes. Overall, when this movie's pacing goes, the first act is easily the strongest. It's just balls to the walls, crazy shenanigans. Once they get trapped in the void, it definitely slows down a little, and the second act's probably the weakest one. The third act picks back up at the end, but still has a few issues. But I think by the time we get to the third act, the emotional crutch of the film really shows. I'd probably separate the third act as when the car fight, the Honda Odyssey fight. That's probably where the third act really kicks in, and the movie starts getting back on its tracks then. So I really enjoy it from then onwards, but the second act definitely can be a bit of a lull. All in all, one thing I think it's worth addressing is when I watch a movie, I always try to catch myself from smiling during it, and definitely through this, I was smiling a fair bit. So regardless of whether I think the movie is critically an issue, which I think is really hard to rank a comedy critically, which this movie is very much a comedy, it's an action comedy. In terms of enjoyment factor, I was very pleasantly surprised. And I think what I mainly wanted, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, is to be a finale to the Foxverse. And that it is. We finally get to say really goodbye to this universe, this era of Marvel, in a very respectful way. And it all comes into combination with the fact that instead of a mid-credits scene, we see behind-the-scenes footage of the other Foxverse, including Fantastic Four, X-Men, all that, playing. We get to see these actors. We get to see interviews with Hugh and Ryan for their first movies, where they talk about their attachment to the characters and the mythos and all that. And it's just... It feels very respectful, and I can tell there's a lot of respect that went into this movie that I think, at most, it deserves respect back for how it is respecting these characters, and people like me that have been watching these movies for 20 years now, and were kind of burnt out in the X-Men and the way that it was going, and would have liked a finale. We do kind of somewhat get a finale to that universe.